see some of you since this is a virtual event for me, and it's wonderful to have a range of
Mallam Mohammed Mahmud seems to be having a little technical difficulty, so I think once he sorts it out, we'll have him back online with us, and we can go on with his presentation today.
hello. Hello, I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, with you, sir. You can go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. These are some of the things that we go through with technology. So waited for an hour, I was online, and then of course it goes down only when I start to speak. So thank you for having me. And so I'll just jump into the presentation. I hope that I have not missed out on a protocol that you've established, but I'd like to thank everybody and not have to go through a lot of names besides what I've said. So let me just share my screen.
You can go ahead, sir.
Okay, this morning I'll talk briefly on the Federal Ministry of Education's eCloud and Nigeria Learning Passport projects. These, firstly, the eCloud is the major part of all of this because it combines a lot of other aspects that the Learning Passport, which is an LMS, fits into. So, starting with the eCloud project. The eCloud project will look at the objectives, the implementation strategies that were adopted, and of course the challenges that come along with projects like these. Right. The eCloud project is conceived, was actually conceived before the COVID-19 pandemic set up, and the director ICT, Abubakar Isa, that is the of the Federal Ministry of Education, and myself and the entire department had a lot of trouble pushing this in the ministry. As one can imagine, a federal structure is really very difficult to push new ideas. So this was like 2 years, starting 2 years, let's say 2018, and it was very difficult to make people understand what we're trying to achieve. But we went on and did the planning, did the meetings, and talked about the concepts. And then as we're pushing this, COVID hit. So everybody was then looking at virtual meetings, online everything. Let's do this. Let's get e-content and so on, and try to do learning online, e-learning. So, of course, because we'd already started some work in this, the eCloud project was suddenly in the limelight, and we had to grab and push a lot of things. So the eCloud project is really composed of several items put together.
Sir, I think we lost your presentation.
Hello?
I think we lost your presentation.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but we lost your presentation slides.
Okay. Let me see if I can restart. Okay. Let me try that again. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay. Right. So it's really, firstly, a content repository. The whole idea is, can we move a lot of education resources online, but not only the resources, of course, the data that is generated. The presenter mentioned that the theme of this year's Innovation Conference-Based University is about big data. And of course, government is trying to arrive at a situation where data is going to be the key component of making decisions. And of course, the government is one of the places that big data can be generated very quickly if we do it right. So of course, again, education is a major part of this in so many ways. So the initial idea is to have this as a repository of educational material first, and then specifying learning management systems, making sure you have open content APIs so that others can use this. The whole point is to make it available to as many Nigerians as possible, get Nigerians online, have the institutions and teachers and lecturers producing content and putting it on this system, and so that it becomes a model for the e-learning ecosystem, if you wish, that the Federal Ministry of Education is really hoping will pick up fantastically. A lot of things are being done. We know of a lot of startups. We've seen fantastic things coming out of a lot of hubs in Abuja, in Lagos, and other places. So it's really great to push this and do the policies that will make it work. So this is really what it's all about. So several components that are core to this are teacher training, or if you wish, capacity building in several ways, providing devices and infrastructure, which means we have to come up with the right policies for device provisioning in institutions, in our primary schools, in our secondary schools, and so on. So it's we're also working with the Federal Ministry of Communications on this, and I'll come to that. So of course, a major part of this is content development. I've mentioned this on the first part. Moving on. So the major parts, providing e-learning platforms with offline capability for underserved communities, because everybody knows that the infrastructure in Nigeria is still in development, so we cannot ignore that reality. That means every technology we're thinking about has to cater for offline access, not only about the infrastructure, but about the cost of providing these things. So any technology that will provide capability to download content to devices so that you're not constantly online is the best way to approach that. Second, to encourage independent platform agnostic content production. Again, this is to ensure that the system, the ecosystem develops, because the Federal Ministry of Education is not trying to kill off the commercial end of things. It's trying to provide a model so that others can build on top of what we're doing. And of course, the eCloud project is also designed to provide verifiable education sector data across the 3 tiers, basic, secondary, and tertiary education. A short story of this is when I was giving a talk in South Korea, and I had to call to prepare for the talk, and I called the ministry. This was way back in 2016. And I wanted the total number of primary schools in Nigeria. And I called 3 different departments, and the 3 different departments gave me 3 different figures. So these are the things that we're trying to solve with the eCloud project also. Implementation strategies. Of course, as Bill Gates once said in early 2000, I think 2001, that content is king. And essentially, if you have content, you have the major core of any online production media useful system that you want to have. So we've set out on this. I'll talk a bit more later on this. Capacity building, of course, I've mentioned this. Our teachers need to be up and about on this. I've been to Bayes University. I've been discussing with Dr. Islam on several fronts, and I can see wonderful things happening in Bayes and other places similarly, where the capability of lecturers, of people that were not really into IT, having to come over and understand a system whereby you're using technology to teach. So this is a major part of the eCloud project. Of course, you cannot do this without policies and guidelines and strategies to implement all of this. We're looking at what we call the eContent Partnership Program, where the idea is in providing content, lecturers, teachers could produce content for this project and earn money from this. We're looking at setting up a marketplace for this. It's still in early development, but is a conversation that we're really excited about, because if you want an ecosystem, there has to be the sustainability component, which comes only through, well, not only, but largely through funding. Again, I've already mentioned device accessibility. You have to have a policy for that. How do you provide the devices? What specifications are you looking at? How do you sustain such a system? I'm going to rush through some of these. The e-content development is really grand, as I've mentioned. So, of course, providing policy guidelines is a major part for content producers. This is talking about the NERDC, the agency that is responsible for curriculum. It's, again, a major player in what we're doing, because some of the systems that we've been using in the past is really about how many pages are there in the book, what graphics are in the book, and so on. But today we're talking about text, audio, video, and AR and VR. So how do you rate these things? How do you look at the outcomes, the learning outcomes from these items? So it's a major do to scale up and upgrade the instruments that the NERDC is using to do this. I've mentioned APIs. As much as possible, we're looking at using open systems so that there's no vendor lock-in in the content that the Federal Ministry of Education will be providing. And that also means that as we provide more learning management systems, the content can be shared. So you don't have to repeat or replicate and waste resources in that direction. Yes, Nigeria has through NITDA, a data protection regulation system. So of course, we're paying attention to this. As a board member, of course, I have to play two parts in this. Make sure that this works well for what we're doing in the Federal Ministry of Education, and it works well for the data policies of the nation, which includes privacy protection. A lot of agencies will be involved as we go along. I've already mentioned NERDC, JAMB is there, UBEC, because if you need to talk to the states, UBEC is really the best option in terms of primary education. The setup, we've been doing an e-learning, we've already concluded an e-learning policy for UBEC, which would be now upgrading for a national e-learning policy, which will cover the rest of the sectors, secondary and tertiary. So, not to bore you with this, I'll skip to the next. So, of course, again, initial activities, capacity building is one, NERDC content assessments instruments, I've already mentioned that. Interagency collaboration, because part of the problem we have as a nation is we've got too many silo structures in government, and a lot of repetition happens, a lot of waste in resources, both human and human capital and funding. So this is a major challenge that we're trying to work with other agencies, especially the Ministry of Communications Digital Economy, which includes then working with NCC, NID, NIMC, and so on. Policy realignment will allow the interagencies to collaborate, because some of the policies that we come up with in the Federal Ministry of Education are directly linked to other places. For instance, the Ministry of Youth, I've already mentioned communications, and so on. So we're trying to see how to work together so that we don't repeat either policies, or you create policies that will go against other policies in other components of government. Okay, I don't have to mention all of this. Yes, in doing all of this, what is the target audience? Of course, teachers, lecturers, learners, parents, and in terms of data, what does the government get out of it? How many kids are in school? How many are out of school? Where are they? Why are they out of school? How many doctors are we producing? Do we need to create more other policies to create more doctors, and so on? Because today a lot of figures are thrown all over the place by different agencies, NGOs, international development partners, but which one is really working for us? A lot of confusion is coming out of this. An example is I keep hearing UNICEF throwing out that only 8% of Nigerians are online. And I think even by just an offhand look at Nigeria, we know that the figures are much, much higher than this. So we need to ensure that the figures that we're using are coming from us and they're verifiable. Okay, so yes, the development partners should get data from what we're doing as verifiable and authenticated. And of course, the private sector needs the data that will come out of the eCloud in order to find niches to develop in technology and learning. Yes, we're going to go through the prototyping, the initiation cycles. In prototyping, we've started with the LMS, three LMSs, the Nigeria Learning Passport, which I'll talk shortly about, Inspire, and Ignite. These are different aspects because, but like I said, I'll talk about it a bit later. And then, of course, we go through looking at stakeholder engagement, which I mentioned, ministries, organizations, and so on, providing APIs and devices. And then, of course, we need to monitor what we're doing, look at the policies we're using, the old and the new and the updated. And of course, we need feedback on what we're doing. So setting up a structure like this is in a lot of ways very new to the fairness of education, and some of the items will not even be coming on in the next 2 years or so, and we're looking at how to sustain this momentum across governments, because again, we cannot ignore the political cycle that happens regularly when you replace players. The learning management systems, I will take a slide or two on this so that I don't take too much time. Yeah, with the participation of UNICEF, Microsoft, and Cambridge University, we started the Learning Passport, the Nigeria Learning Passport project. It's a basic education e-learning component, and it started as part of the GPE COVID-19 emergency relief, and it's already online. And the major challenges on this is really getting customized Nigerian content to the level that the Fairness of Education expects, the NERTC. And otherwise, at the moment, the feedback, we've already done testing, we've got some data on how to proceed in terms of the mobile app and so on. So this is one of the e-learning systems that is being rolled out by the Fairness of Education. This is going to be launched very soon, I believe in the next 2 or 3 weeks before the end of the year. Of course, again, teacher training is a major part of that, and that has taken off well. We're doing master trainers down to the States and trying to propagate in terms of using the system, using e-learning systems, understanding e-learning systems, and content production for teachers. Of course, again, policy on how to proceed the learning system, the sustainability of it has to be put in. So that's the Nigeria Learning Passport. A lot of work has gone into this. UNICEF is really going all out in this because they have other countries that are also doing their own country learning passports, and Nigeria is actually the elephant in the room in this case. It's the largest population in terms of use for the project. Yes, this is homegrown, Inspire. I'm very proud that I was part of the naming for this, but the whole aspect here is to try to have open systems that are, again, accessible. This one now goes over basic. The idea is it will do the whole 3 levels of education, basic, secondary, and tertiary. We've started with basic, and it's also online, and is also going to be launched pretty soon. Of course, a big component of it is e-content development, in which I've already mentioned the e-content partnership program, so that our teachers can make extra money in the effort they put in producing very good content. As part of Inspire, actually, there's Ignite. The Ignite part is for teachers, as you can see, in terms of the content production and lesson planning. And also collaboration is built into it. It's a system that's already up, and the idea is teachers can register either on Inspire or Ignite, and it will be one account, and you have to have the TRCN registration, that is the Teachers Registration Council. As mentioned by my boss 2 years ago, that all teachers in basic have to be registered with the Teachers Registration Council, which is actually the law, but it's been ignored all of these years. So now we're trying to make sure that this is part of the implementation that goes into the tech. So moving forward, the eCloud project also includes a certificate verification portal, which is already up in the Fairness of Education. It's part of the official website. There's also a policy on education and the national identity number. We've been working with Engineer Aziz, the Director General of NIMC. He's a very, very good and active elder brother to me in this sense. And we've happily been doing this for several years. So as you can see, part of the outcomes is JAMB has started using the national ID number for all its exams from last year, if I recall. So there is, again, open education data, which is another component that we can talk about in another time, but basically taking all the information I've mentioned and providing it for researchers and other agencies that require education data coming out of Nigeria. The site is also up. It's part of the official Fairness of Education website. I've mentioned National Device Policy, working on that. National e-learning policy, we're starting off very soon on that. UNESCO is helping out in this. UNICEF is helping out in this. And we're happy to share more information as we go along. So the challenges, of course, buy-in. Buy-in is a major challenge. I've mentioned this earlier. Funding is a constant. There's always need for funding for such projects. And the key concern is sustainability. Doing a project, achieving a project is only, to me, just 15% of the entire thing. And if you can do sustainability, achieve sustainability for the project, then I believe that's the 85% for the project. So I thank you very much. I hope I didn't bore you too much. And I appreciate the time given to do this presentation on behalf of the Fairness of Education and my boss, the Honourable Minister of Education, Mallam Adam. Thank you very much.
Way to go.
Thank you very much, sir. We're grateful to have you today for this presentation. So if there are any questions or remarks, comments online. In the absence of messages or comments or remarks online, I would like to ask a very important question, Mallam Mohammed. So I want to know how universities like ours will be incorporated in your e-learning projects. How can we benefit? And how can we gain access to all these open resources to enhance teaching and learning in our organizations?
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Actually, I'm looking at Bayes University as a resource also, and we've actually been working with Dr. Rizlan on a lot of the issues I've mentioned, but also definitely the point here is the eCloud project is supposed to be a baseline, okay? A model that will provide others to build on top to do better things. So we're not building every single feature or the bells and whistles in this case, but we're putting up a model that is acceptable, that can bring out, especially the content part, that can bring out good, fantastic content that we've seen along in the past couple of years working on this. We've seen great content come out of the Nigerian ecosystem. So we're trying to make it, present it to the world, ensure that it's also providing the learning that is required, but also one of the key parts is localizing it, making sure that it works for Nigeria, not because somebody says it's fantastic. Okay.
Thank you, sir. I think it answers my question perfectly, and I have one more person here that has a comment to make.
Good morning, sir. My name is Engineer Miguel Oladi from Joseph Ayabala University in Osun State. It's kind of a comment to question. I hope you understand. You mentioned an interesting scenario when you talk about the eCloud project, about asking three different units for information and getting three different figures. I believe
Yeah,
that
I'm sorry, I cannot hear the speaker very well. I don't know if you can make it better.
Can you get it now?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I said concerning your comment earlier on the eCloud project, I was asking figures from three different units and getting three different figures.
Yes.
I believe the problem is due to lack of a data-driven system or policy by which different units or different sections kind of operate as independent fragments. I believe something needs to be done such that at local level, at the levels of the institutions and the regulatory bodies, the issue of collaboration, or just the message of collaboration, needs to be pushed such that this information is made available so that those that need it have access to it rather than having to reach out or contact someone because you need information. I think that's the key part to getting this project to work. Otherwise, a lot of the hard work we've done over the past years will just be like, that's not again because of the Nigerian problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, you've touched on something that I'll just comment on yours in another way. When I started work with the Honourable Minister in early 2016, I spent the first month looking at everything that is within my sphere. And then I got a meeting with him and said, okay, so you have three problems, okay? The first one is data. The second is data. The third is data. That is, what you've said encapsulates the problem, because really verifiable data is the problem. It's not that there's no data, it's just that we cannot authenticate and say, okay, this is absolutely the correct figure for X number of schools, yeah? So, like you've mentioned, the policies have to be aligned, the collaboration has to be increased with other ministries and departments, even within the sphere of education. Education, the Federal Ministry of Education is overseeing 23 agencies, JAM, UBEC, TED Fund, and so on, 23 of them. Now, that's a lot. But besides that, you've got all the states and FCT, so 37. And within the states, you've still got other agencies. Some states have 2 ministries of education, and you've got the SUBEBs, that is the universal basic component of states. And so it's a really large ecosystem. Managing it is a problem. And when you have that, unless you have cohesion or you push a lot of cohesion, the data produced out of this is a lot, but it's fairly useless if you do not have agreement on the data.